We finally know the start time of the Guardians home opener on April 8th. It's going to be a little just after the eclipse gets through Cleveland, but you'll be able to be in the stadium during the eclipse. So that should be interesting. Now we can get on to answer more pressing questions like who the heck's going to be the shortstop? It's a mailbag day of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to today's episode of Locked On Guardians. I'm your host, Justin Latta. Jeff Ellis off today, doing his thing with the kids, teaching, and all the conferences. Wish him well. Always a fun time of year. I want to thank you for listening to the show, and we're free wherever you get podcasts. We cover your team every day, the Guardians, every single day. We're back to 5 days a week. We have been. Catch us on YouTube, Amazon, if you like the free version without the ads, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, although Google's getting rid of their podcast when we get to YouTube. So I'm still figuring that one out for my own podcast personally. All right, so Guardians have their home opener time announced. I'm not going this year. Breaks a long streak for me. I have been going to the Guardians home opener every year since 2005, save for the pandemic year where legally I was not allowed to go. But this will be a big break for me. It's just I live in an area where there's going to be a lot of traffic for the eclipse. It's going to be in the path of totality. There's projected to be like thousands and thousands of people traveling to my city to witness the path of totality of the eclipse. And they're talking about just pure gridlock and talking about getting supplies for a couple of days ahead, because it's going to be crazy around here. So I'm not going to venture out of my house that day, unfortunately, just because all the craziness going on. But I'll be watching. I'll be there in spirit. It'll be a bummer to have the streak broken. But I'm going to spring training this year. So that was my trade-off this year is I'm going to spring training for the first time. I'll be down in spring training February 29th through March 4th. So looking forward to that. If any of you are down there during that time, let me know. All right, enough about me. It is a Mailbag Friday episode of Locked On Guardians. Got some good questions here. We're also going to talk about some college baseball to watch this weekend. It is the start of Division I college baseball. As you're listening to this, probably games are already going on. I think the first game is at 11 a.m., and that's Duke. So we'll get to that later in the episode before we get out of here. But first, we got to get some of your questions. Let's start with Bill. A lot of back and forth here on X and elsewhere about Arias, Rocchio, Freeman. Not asking who I would favor personally. He's asking me, but how exactly should the Guardians use spring training to help make decisions on who stays on the roster and who starts at shortstop? Well, Gabriel Arias and Brayan Rocchio are both out of options. I think it's very unlikely both end up on the opening roster. You mentioned Freeman there. I don't know what they'll do with him either. He is also down to his last option year as well. So it's going to be a very tricky situation for them in spring training. Most people assume that Gabriel Arias is going to be given the first run at shortstop and see how things go there. And I can't say I blame him for that because the ceiling is probably higher for Arias to me than it is Rocchio. But I think it's just more unlikely he reaches that ceiling. That's just, again, personally. But how should the Guardians use spring training to do that? I mean, the best thing you can do is just get these guys at bats and reps at the position and get them, with good reps. It's very impossible to decipher spring training performance and equate it to who's going to have the best regular season, who's the man for the job. Because even if you're facing good pitchers, like let's say that Arias or Rocchio is batting 3 times in the first 4 innings or 5 innings, and they're facing, Seattle, like Logan Gilbert, let's say, for Seattle. That's great. That's all good. Instead of facing a guy who might be in AA or, selling insurance in a month. But pitchers are also working on stuff early in the part of spring training too, like fastball command, throwing a certain pitch, just building up their stamina for the year. So, and then the ball flies in Arizona and breaking balls don't break the same in Arizona. So you can't even judge performance based off of, like Gabriel Arias hit a home run off of, the Mariners ace. That's great, Luis Castillo. But, is Castillo working on fastball command? What's he doing? It's hard to tell. You just got to go out there and see who's having the best at bats, who has the best approach, who just looks like they're ready for a full season, I guess, at this point. The thing with Arias is if he's on the roster, he can play multiple spots. Not that Rocchio can't, but it's all infield. Gabriel Arias does have the advantage of first base. He does have the advantage of right field. That might give him a leg up. And I know we're talking about the starting shortstop here, but if you utilize Tyler Freeman as a utility player, you can move Arias around a little bit and not start him at shortstop. Or you could start Rocchio, I guess, at short and use Arias in right field or at first base, and you can split them a little bit. Maybe there's a way to do both. I don't know. Maybe there is a way to do both on the opening day roster. But all you can do is give these guys reps, put them in situations, and see what happens, because you can't, like I said, you can't grade out on stats. You can't go on spring training stats. You just got to go out and give the guys the most reps they can. And the hard part is, too, you have to give them consistent reps, too. You can't just start early on, you might not play 2 games in a row, but it's a shorter spring training this year because last year was longer with the World Baseball Classic. This year it's a little bit shorter. Eventually you got to play guys multiple days in a row, though, and see how things go. And you got to put them in game situations. So that's the best thing you can do. There's really no question about them defensively. The thing is, all Arias and Rocchio defensively, you know what you're getting there. Freeman is probably not as good a defensive shortstop, but they have to get a lot of at-bats in spring. But, you have to evaluate where they're at, where their headspace is coming into the year, and what you're seeing in at-bats from them. Are they ready to face Major League pitching for the full year? It's going to be tough, without a doubt. Tyler wants to know, with the recent comments, there was a Terry Pluto column earlier this week of the team's vision for the middle infield. So same question. What do you think ultimately happens with Rocchio this season, since it seems he's the odd man out? See, I don't think he's the odd man out. I think there is a way to have Arias and Rocchio on the roster. It's going to be 2 of the 3, right? It's going to be Arias, Rocchio, or Freeman on the roster. And none of these guys benefits from going back to AAA as the odd man out. That doesn't mean they have to trade them, because they don't, because they need the depth, but they're certainly not gaining value by going to AAA. And in AAA, you've got Angel Martinez and Juan Brito and Jose Tena all going up there. So it's going to be difficult. Not to mention you have, your Reynald Delgados and your Daniel Schneemans who are hanging around and filling a roster spot. Maybe Aaron Bracho goes there. It's a very tough spot. So one of the 3 is obviously the odd man out. I think 2 of them could make the roster. But here's the thing. You can't have – I think Freeman's okay to be on a bench on a Major League roster, but maybe one of them's the odd man out, because I can't see both Rocchio and Arias benefiting from sitting for a couple of days on the Major League roster. They have to play. Those guys both need consistent reps. The hard part is I just don't think either of them benefits from getting consistent reps in AAA. Both those guys have done what they're going to do in AAA. They need to face Major League pitching. So maybe it's a challenge for Stephen Vogt to get both Arias and Rocchio on the Major League roster and fit them into games. Like, it's not good for them to sit on the bench in the Major League roster. Arias has done it, and I don't think Rocchio's the odd man out, because, like, while he's got his own stuff going on in the field in terms of, like, emotion, and I think he's calmed some of that down, but it still happens. Sometimes it could happen last year in AAA. We had an incident last year where Arias supposedly, I was there at one game where David Fry started in right field, and I couldn't figure out why Fry was starting over Arias. And I had been told that it was due to some, attitude concerns. And Fry was coming in, putting the work, and Arias necessarily wasn't in the right headspace. And then he needed to get that through to him. And I'm not saying that puts him as a bad apple or he's got problems. I'm just saying that has come up before with the previous coaching staff. This might be a good year for Arias, to be honest. He's getting a very fresh coaching staff, new manager, hitting coach is the same, but you got a lot of new faces out there. Maybe it's a good fresh start for him, because he has battled some of that stuff in the past, and a lot of that is because he thinks he needs time. He needs the opportunity. I think he had earned the opportunity coming into last year, and he just wasn't getting it. So I understand why he might have been frustrated with not getting the opportunity at shortstop, especially over, Rosario, who the Cleveland spent way too much time on. I can't blame him for that. I wanted to see them move on from Rosario too, and I thought it was Arias' time. And this team is probably going to, I don't want to say struggle, but they're going to be held back a little by the lack of decision last year on shortstop. Had they moved on from Rosario a lot earlier last year than they did, they could have easily gotten Arias more opportunities at shortstop and got a longer sample to see what they wanted to do. And even then, you could still get him on the roster this year, but they delayed that decision and they stuck with Rosario as long as they did. So now they need a little bit longer, but now Rocchio is ready. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I think that, again, I think there's a way to get them both on the roster, but Stephen Vogt's got to do something Terry Francona didn't do a lot of, and that's utilize the bench. When he had managerial decisions, it was a lot of the same guys starting every day. And look, the offense was terrible last year, so there was no reason to start the same guys every day. Like, you're going to have Quan, you're going to have Jimenez, you're going to have Jose, you're going to have Naylor. Those 5 guys are playing pretty much every day. And then you're figuring out the outfield, you're figuring out who your extra bat is, whether it's DH/first base. So Vogt's going to have to mix and match the rest of the roster and actually use the bench for a change, because it doesn't make sense if Ramon Laureano or Miles Straw or Gabriel Arias or Estevan Florial, Devyison De Los Santos aren't playing well. It doesn't make sense to continue to run them out there. I mean, I know, I guess it depends as it comes down to, is this a development year? Is this a winning year? They have to decide that. And that's the hard part for Cleveland, right? Is because they don't seem to know whether they're developing young players or if they're trying to win. Because if you are trying to develop players, then some of the young guys have to play and you can't yank them out. But if you're trying to win, you got to put the hot hand in there. So a lot of tough decisions for Stephen Vogt in his first year at the helm. Not exactly a roster with a clear-cut direction in terms of offense. But I don't think Rocchio is the odd man out, Tyler. I think that I believe he will ultimately win the shortstop job. I do believe that. I think he is going to be the most solid major leaguer out of the 3 between those guys right now. And we'll see what happens with Brito and Angel Martinez and all that. But I think Rocchio ultimately does win the shortstop job. All right, got a couple more questions. We got to talk about also college baseball season coming up and some final thoughts, all coming up here on Locked On Guardians. Before we get to the rest of the mailbag, Black Blaze, that makes backing up and accessing your data astonishingly easy. Guys, let me tell you, I work in cybersecurity by day. I've learned a lot of things there. Let me give you a free piece of advice, a 3-2-1 backup rule. You should have 3 backups, 2 different types of copies of that backup. That could be cloud, physical, however you want to do it. And you should have 1 offsite for disaster recovery. And that's where Black Blaze comes in. They have unlimited backups for Macs, PCs, businesses for $99 a year. And they protect business data with a centrally managed admin console. You can back up all the data on multiple machines. And they have restored 55 billion files for customers. They can even do it by mail. Hard drives can be shipped to your door, to your business. They have a 1-year file retention and version history. Guys, back up your stuff. I'm telling you, it's so important today. Multiple restore options in the event of data loss or ransomware. It's so prevalent right now. Whether you open a phishing email, encryption happens, ransomware is everywhere. I can tell you that from being in cybersecurity. It is everywhere. If you run a business, they are looking for valuable data and they are looking to extort you for it. So make sure you have a backup of that data, because let me tell you, they are not going to give you clean data back. You do not pay the ransom and you're not going to get your data back. But Black Blaze gets you a no risk free trial. Blackblaze.com/LockedOnMLB gives you plenty of time to upload and download some files. Blackblaze.com/LockedOnMLB. Sign up for a free trial. See why Black Blaze is recommended by Inc. Magazine. Go to backblaze.com. That's backblaze/LockedOnMLB. It's quite the tongue twister. That's Backblaze. All right, back to your mailbag question. There's a fun one from @guards253 on Twitter, asking me to predict the top 3 Guardians minor league organizational leaders in WRC Plus for 2024. That is a good question. That is a very good question. Oof. I think Jonathan Rodriguez. I don't know how long he's going to be in the minors. Depends on how things go in the outfield and in the majors, but I could see Jonathan Rodriguez having a great year offensively. Again, he was fantastic last year. Give me Juan Brito. He's going to be playing in AAA this year, and Columbus's ballpark is hitter friendly. He had a good year last year. I think he takes another step forward this year. So give me Juan Brito to finish in that mix as well. I'd love to see some other guys step up too from the lower levels. Like I could easily say Chase DeLauder, right? And that's kind of an easy answer. Um, that would be kind of less fun though, right? If you want me to give you a better answer, be super excited. I'm not going to count this, but Jose Perella is going to be at the Arizona Complex League this year, and he had a whale of a year in the DSL. Wouldn't count him out, but I don't know if we're counting complex leagues. But if we're not, give me Jason Churio at low A. I think he would have a good year at low A. Now he's finally gotten to see it a little bit down there and see what happens. Wouldn't count out well in Francisca either to do that. I would love to see Khalil Watson do that. But okay, easy answer is DeLauder, Brito, and Jonathan Rodriguez. And hey, that's 2 outfielders. That's good, right? 2 outfielders in the top 3 of WRC plus in Cleveland's minor leagues. We could definitely use that. But if you want me to give you an under the radar answer, give me a guy like Jason Churio. That would be a lot more fun. Got a question from Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky too, by the way. If you are not a fan of the site formerly known as Twitter, I have the same handle. It's JL Baseball on Blue Sky. I'm over there too. I post my links because Twitter loves to throttle and blacklist my links from Substack for my writing. So I'm on Blue Sky there. And Aaron sent this from Blue Sky. Which non-roster invitees do you think have the best chance of breaking camp with the Guardians this spring? Also, Ed, kind of the same question here. Who are your sleepers from spring training roster and NRI players? So we'll answer both these at the same time for Ed and Aaron. It's tough, right? Because technically Kyle Manzaro is an NRI guy, right? And I'd love to see him make the opening day roster. I don't know if he will. I think it's just too easy to leave him in AAA with the roster situation. But I think it's pretty likely that they end up taking a reliever on the NRI list. You know, whether that's Tyler Beede, do they add Carlos Carrasco? You know, there's other guys on there. Don't sleep on Anthony Goes. I know he's just coming back, but they did like him, and he seems to be really well liked by the minor leaguers too. That his teammates really like him. Anthony Goes. He's an interesting dude, so I would not count Anthony Goes out either. I just think people really like him, so I wouldn't count him out. Again, I'd love to see it be Carlos Carrasco and Kyle Manzardo, but you got to open those spots, and it's going to be a lot of tough. But Tyler Beede makes a ton of sense. We've talked about that before. Is that he has that opt out, and people were really after him on the open market as a minor league free agent coming back from the foreign league. So he had a lot of offers. He chose Cleveland. He's got the opt out, so I think that gives him a little bit of leverage. I don't know if there's really any sleepers though in camp. Like like I said, it'd be great for a guy like Manzardo to make the open day roster, but there's Florio and De Los Santos. It's tough. I think the roster is mostly kind of set. Like, you know, would they take a Cade Smith to start? I don't know. I'd be interested in that. I don't think they're quite ready to take Frank Walla on. There's some things he's got to work on in the minors, but they at least noticed him by inviting him to camp. That's a good thing. So yeah, I would say my answer probably is most likely Tyler Beede, followed by Carlos Carrasco if things go well there. And let's hope for Kyle Manzardo. That would be a good thing. Yeah, so let's go there. One more question for the mailbag this week. We got some other stuff we'll get to. This one comes from a YouTube commenter. How much consideration is the wood bat issue? This stems from our talk with Carlos Collazo and just some other college talk we had on the episode yesterday and previous episodes talking about, you know, how college players use the aluminum bat, MLB uses wood. How do they figure out how that's going to translate? Because, you know, we talked about guys who didn't have experience on like the Cape Cod League or wood bat, didn't have played Team USA, didn't have any experience with wood bat. The Cape Cod League is generally where this happens. So the best college players get invited to the Cape Cod League where they use wood bats, and that's where MLB teams get a chance to see these hitters use wood bats for the most part. And there are workouts too. There's individual workouts they can do before the draft, whether that's high school or college. There is the combine now, so there is that. There's a combine. And there's other leagues besides the Cape Cod League too. There is the Northwoods League, which is probably the second best to the Cape Cod League. That's like in the Minnesota Midwest area. There's the Carolina Prospect League, which is probably a third tier from that. There's a Perfect Game Collegiate League. There's the Prospect League, which is now taken over by Major League Baseball. There's a team that Mahoney Valley Scrappers are now part of that league, the only Prospect League. That's a college summer wood bat league. So that's generally where you get your college wood bat experience for college hitters is the college wood bat leagues. I think Team USA also too uses wood bats, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if it's high school or college, but one or both of those levels also uses wood bat because there's an 18U team for Team USA for high schoolers. And there's a collegiate national team too for college players. I'm 100% sure they use wood bats in the college one. I'm okay. Let's say 90% sure, and I think the high school one could use it too. Not 1,000% sure, but yeah, that's where they get their experience. So yeah, teams don't go in blind to those decisions. They actually have access to find that. That's why it's tough though, is because if guys like I'll even say this, Nick Kurtz, everybody who listens to the show knows that I'm all in on Nick Kurtz, and not some of it's a bit and some of it is I really do like him. But that's one of the knocks on him is he doesn't have any wood bat experience. He has not done the Cape. I think he might have done Team USA at one point. I'm not 1,000% sure on that either. But there is definitely a lack of wood bat experience from Nick Kurtz. So that's just one of those things that's tough. But I'd imagine he might do the combine, or teams just might not care. Sometimes they don't always care about that, but you have to be really good. And I think he's really good. And other guys have been too. So keep an eye on that. Speaking of Nick Kurtz and college baseball, Division I college baseball is finally starting as you're listening to this again. The games are already going on. There's going to be a ton. I'm going to talk about a couple of them, some players I'm interested in. We're 41 days from opening day. Talk about some of the best number 41, and we'll do 42 because that was yesterday too, when Carlos was on. We'll talk about all of that as well, and a couple of final thoughts going into spring training and what's coming up on next week's shows. All coming up here on Locked On Guardians. Pretty soon you'll get a chance to bet on some very fun MLB stuff. But before we get there, you can do it now. You can drop your your bets on Rookie of the Year. Guardians over under right now, I think it's 78.5. I'm still tempted to bet the over on that, but we told you about the over last year on 82, and I think that didn't work. So never know. But pretty soon we'll be able to talk about all that good stuff. But in the meantime, you can get your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book right now. A new customer. So if you're a new customer, you haven't done FanDuel yet, you can put any $5 bet down right now. And if you win that $5 bet, FanDuel is going to give you $150 in bonus bets into your FanDuel account. So just a $5 bet on anything. Take something easy. Even if the payout's low, just do it. And if you win, if you're a new customer, you get $150 to play with in your account. And then you can bet on something fun like the Guardians win total or Kyle Manzardo winning Rookie of the Year. So $150, you don't even got to do it yourself. You just got to win that first $5 bet if you're a new customer. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with this. Quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. The NBA All-Star Game is coming up this weekend. You can do that. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, thanks for all the good questions on this week's mailbag episode. Appreciate all of you chiming in. Appreciate all you guys watching on YouTube too as well with the episode with Carlos. We really appreciate having him on. Got more good stuff coming up for you guys. We are 41 days away from opening day in Oakland on March 29th. Is that the 29th, I believe? I should know. March 28th. 28th. So we're 41 days away. Yesterday, we were 42 days away. Great time to mention Jackie Robinson. It's Black History Month. So, 42 days away from opening day yesterday. And the last Cleveland Indian to wear 42 was actually Mike Jackson in 1999. I took Mike Jackson in 1998 as my reliever on our draft of our last 26 years of Cleveland players. We didn't get to do relievers on the air because ran out of time, but I took Mike Jackson's 98 because he was fantastic. So he was the last one to get to play 42. Hard to believe. Up until 1999, that number was not retired across baseball, or maybe it was just grandfathered in, and Jackson was the last guy to wear it, and that was it. But, had an interesting history here. Rich Yet before that, not fantastic. 41, however, man, 41 has been good for the Guardians over the years. right now it's Logan Allen. I feel pretty good about that, but obviously we know Carlos Santana, Victor Martinez had it before. Some very good years. We all know Charlie Nagy had it. Only 1, 2, 3, 4 players have had it going back to 1990. So this number not only hasn't had a good run of success in terms of the players and how good they've been, but going back 1990, just 4 different guys. So longevity in those 2 guys, that's fantastic. I hope Logan Allen can continue that along and be in this rotation and be good for a long time. So it's been a lot of success. If Logan Allen is the left-handed version of Charles Nagy, that's quite the win. And hey, Cleveland's going to need that because that 2020 draft is looking rough right now. Before Nagy, you had Rich Thompson, Paul Ruschel, Dick Tidrow was on there in the 70s. Was not a real strong number though until Charles Nagy came along, grabbed it in 1990, and now it has been probably one of the most successful numbers in Cleveland history. Over the weekend, we'll have 39 and 38, obviously. 39 last year 40 and 39. You had Ronaldo Lopez at one point last year. That'll be a fun random jersey one day. Bobby Bradley. Number 40 has not been great. A lot of guys. And since Bartolo Colon has been gone, you've had Billy Traber. I really love Billy Traber. Matt Miller. I love Matt Miller. He was good until he got hurt. Tom Mastny was interesting for a minute. And then after that, it was just a bunch of random dudes. Jess Todd, Matt Herges, Jerry Sands, the legend of Jerry. Then 39 was Oscar Gonzalez and Oliver Perez, Gio Urshela, JB Shuck, a lot of random dudes as well. So 39 and 40 could use some love in terms of new players to break out a little bit and join 40. What to watch for this weekend? College baseball, since we're talking about college a little bit. So first games on Friday are at 11 a.m. So if you're listening to this, maybe you want to turn on some college baseball, start doing some draft work. I should be watching while I'm working during the day in cybersecurity. I'll be watching Indiana and Duke. Duke has Jonathan Santucci pitching on Friday. He's their Friday starter. I don't think he ends up in a range for Cleveland. I like him. He's a good pitcher. He's probably an easy first round talent, so Cleveland's not going to draft him at number 1, and he's not going to slide to 36. But Saturday should be fun. Andrew Healy, a lefty, 6'6" sophomore, really strong makeup, good body, low 90s, is at 95, fantastic command. Last year as a freshman, so he's a draft eligible sophomore. 9.5. I'm not a big fan of strikes per 9 innings and walks per 9 innings, but 9.5 strikeouts per 9 and 1.5 walks per 9. So he struck out a little over a batter an inning, walked 7 and 42 innings last year. Again, he's a 6'6", big dude. He's got a nice changeup as his best secondary. He's got a couple of breaking balls that are pretty good. Easily talking about early day 2 pitcher, like round 3 or 4, maybe even a little bit higher. So watch him on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to watching that game. We know Nick Kurtz is playing Fordham and Akron. I'm not going to be watching those games because I think Nick Kurtz could hit a million home runs against those 2 pitching staff, especially Akron, because that's how it is. Oregon plays at 2 o'clock. I'm sorry, Oregon State plays at 2 if you want to watch Travis Bazana, but you'll have to have Flow Sports to do that. Iowa and Seton Hall at 5 o'clock. Iowa's pitching staff this year, my God. They've got Brody Brecht. They've got Cade Obermiller. And I think the other guy, Marcus Morgan, that Jeff talked about. Morgan walks a lot of guys, but he's a lot of fun. I'm going to watch a lot of Iowa baseball this year. Their pitching staff is ridiculous. UC Santa Barbara and Campbell play this weekend. UC Santa Barbara's got Matt Agger. So that's obviously Shane Bieber's college. Agger is definitely a Cleveland-type guy. Northeastern, 8 o'clock against Arizona. That should be a good one. So we talked yesterday with Carlos about Mike Sirota quite a bit. He's on Northeastern. They're ranked 23 to start the year. And they're playing Arizona. That's big because, again, the ball flies in Arizona. So you got to be careful, but they are a Division I program in the Pac-12. Even though the Pac-12 is not the greatest ever in the environment, how Mike Sirota does against them will be really worth watching. There's a Shriners Classic in Texas. There's a tournament going on. I forget what it's called on the West Coast as well. So that's a lot of fun. There's just a lot of good college baseball this weekend. I'll be watching a ton on Saturday. I hope you will too. And if you watch anything, let me know. Tweet at me. Find me on Blue Sky. Let me know if you're watching anything. I am super excited about that. Some final thoughts here before we get out of here. I know Devyison De Los Santos has been working on the outfield in spring a little bit, or at least in terms of early work. Douglas Santos is in the outfield. That's interesting. Find a way to keep him on the roster. I think that makes a ton of sense. Go out there and do whatever you can to get that guy on the roster. And if he can play outfield, it's worth it. Do whatever you can to keep him. Make it worth the time if you drafted him in the Rule 5 draft. Jack Leftwich and Mason Hickman were added as non-roster invitees to spring training. That's a lot of fun. Big fan of Leftwich, so I'm excited to see him in spring training. I think Mason Hickman's probably a reliever at this point, a middle relief guy at best, but excited to see him. But definitely excited to see Jack Leftwich also get that invite. Extra workout guys. They invited a couple other guys to work out in Major League Spring Training. Yes. Chase DeLauder is on that list. Diane Frias is on that list. Khalil Watson is on that list. That's exciting. Ethan Hankins, that's interesting on that list. Tyler Thornton, who strikes out a lot of dudes, doesn't really know where the ball's going sometimes. He's on that list. Ross Carver. Ross Carver is one of my sleeper prospects for this year. He is going to be there as part of that extra group of arms that is at spring training this year, Major League Spring Training. So I'm excited to watch him as well. And of course, you guys heard City Connects are coming this year. I have no idea. Just praying that it's not a guitar. I don't think it will be. It doesn't sound like it will be. But my only concern with the City Connects is that Major League Baseball players are not happy with these new uniforms. They are pissed off at the quality and how they look, and they don't fit the best, they say. So if this new contract with Nike, everyone's not happy with the quality of the uniforms, I hope the City Connects are not bad too. So I guess we'll find out how that goes. All right, what's coming up? So we know we did the mailbag today. We are back in your feeds on Monday. We're going to talk off-season review and spring training storyline. So we'll take a look back at what did and didn't happen over the offseason and maybe grade the offseason a little bit and talk about where things ended up. And we'll talk about our favorite spring training storylines going into spring training. We're hoping to have a special guest for that one. We'll find out if we do. If not, we're still going to do that. We got position previews to do. So you heard us do our position reviews throughout the offseason. We got to talk position previews for the season and what has changed and what to expect for the upcoming year at every spot on the roster. I'm excited to do our prospect tools draft. We're going to try to get to that next week. Hitters and pitchers. So we're going to try to build the best Guardians prospect by drafting individual player tools. We've got our second annual Guardians prospect draft. So who builds the best prospect team that you guys will be able to grade. Last year I didn't do so good because Jeff took all the catchers and I was stuck with not a good catcher. And then eventually at the end of the month, we are going to catch up with our friend Andre Knott from spring training before I head out there. Andre's going to get there before I do. So while he's down there, we're going to try to get him on the show. We are also efforting to get a coach from the Guardians on the show. We'll see how that goes, but put in a good word for us. Let people know you want to hear more guests from the Guardians on our show. We are trying to make that a thing. We might need some support from you to say that, hey, you want to listen to Guardians players and coaches on Locked On Guardians. We'd love to hear more interviews. Tweet that into existence and see if you can help us gain momentum on that. In the meantime, thank you for listening all weekend today. Download, subscribe, rate and review. We appreciate that. Anywhere you get podcasts, please leave us some comments on YouTube on the algorithm. That helps us. And thanks for being an everydayer. We appreciate all the comments, appreciate all the questions for the mailbag. Go Guardians, go. Enjoy some college baseball.